The sidewalks of New York City are superhighways of anonymity. During the day, millions of intent pedestrians stride along the pavement, their faces like masks that betray nothing. The same expressions pervade the parallel world beneath the streets, the subway. People read, look at their phones, and stare off into the great invisible nowhere, their faces disconnected from whatever is going on in their minds. Of course, the unreadable faces of 8 million New Yorkers belie the teeming world on the other side of that blank wall they've learned to put up. A hidden thoughtscape of rich and active internal conversations, frequently awash with chatter. After all, the inhabitants of New York are nearly as famous for their neuroses as they are for their gruffness. As a native, I say this with love. Imagine, then, what we might learn if we could burrow past their masks to eavesdrop on their inner voices. As it happens, that is exactly what the British anthropologist Andrew Irving did over the course of 14 months, beginning in 2010. Listened in on the minds of just over 100 New Yorkers. While Irving hoped to gain a glimpse into the raw verbal life of the human mind, or rather, an audio sample of it, the origin of his study actually had to do with his interest in how we deal with the awareness of death. A professor at the University of Manchester, he had done earlier fieldwork in Africa analyzing the vocalized inner monologues of people diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. Unsurprisingly, their thoughts roiled with the anxiety, uncertainty, and emotional pain produced by their diagnoses. Now Irving wanted to compare these findings with a group of people who surely had their woes, but weren't necessarily in a grieved state to begin with. To carry this out, he simply, and bravely, approached New Yorkers on the street and in parks and cafes, explained his study, and asked if they would be willing to speak their thoughts aloud into a recording device while he filmed them at a distance. Some days, a handful of people said yes. Other days, only one. It was to be expected that most New Yorkers would be too busy or skeptical to agree. Eventually, Irving gathered his 100 streams of internally represented speech, as he described them, in recordings ranging from 15 minutes to an hour and a half. The recordings obviously don't provide an all-access backstage pass to the mind, because an element of performance might have come into play for some participants. Even so, they offer an uncommonly candid window into the conversations people have with themselves as they navigate their daily lives. As was only natural, prosaic concerns occupied space in the minds of everyone in Irving's study. Many people commented on what they observed on the streets, other pedestrians, drivers, and traffic, for example, as well as on the things they needed to do. But existing alongside these unremarkable musings were monologues negotiating a host of personal wounds, distresses, and worries. The narrations often landed on negative content with utterly no transition, like a gaping pothole appearing suddenly on the unspooling road of thought. Take, for example, a woman in Irving's study named Meredith, whose inner conversation pivoted sharply from everyday concerns to matters of literal life and death. "I wonder if there's a Staples around here," Meredith said, before shifting, like an abrupt lane change, to a friend's recent cancer diagnosis. "You know, I thought she was going to tell me that her cat died. She crossed the street, then said, 'I was prepared to cry about her cat, and then I'm just trying not to cry about her. I mean, New York without Joan is just, I can't even imagine it.' She started crying. She'll probably be fine, though. I love that line about having a 20% chance of being cured, and how a friend of hers said, 'Would you go on a plane that had a 20% chance of crashing?' No, of course not. It was hard to get through, though. She does put up quite a wall of words." Meredith seemed to be working through bad news rather than drowning in it. Thoughts about unpleasant emotions aren't necessarily chatter, and this is a case in point. She didn't start spiraling. A few minutes later, after crossing another street, her verbal stream circled back to her task at hand. "Now, is there a Staples down there? I think there is." While Meredith processed her fear about losing a beloved friend, a man named Tony fixated on another kind of grief, the loss of closeness in a relationship, and perhaps even the relationship itself. Carrying a messenger bag down a sidewalk scattered with pedestrians, he began a self-referential riff of thoughts. Walk away. Look. Suck it up. Or move on. Just walk away. I understand the thing about not telling everybody. But I'm not everybody. You two are having a goddamn baby. A phone call would have been good. The sense of exclusion he felt obviously cut him deeply. He seemed to be poised on a fulcrum of sorts, between a problem in search of a solution and pain that could lead to unproductive wallowing. Clear. Totally clear. Move forward, Tony then said. He used language not just to give voice to his emotions, but also to search for how best to handle the situation. The thing is, he went on, it could be an out. When they told me they were having a baby, I felt a bit out. I felt a bit pushed out. But now maybe it's an escape hatch. I was pissed before, but must admit, not so pissed anymore. Now it could work to my advantage. He released a soft, bitter laugh, then sighed. I'm certain that this is an out. I'm looking at this positively now. I was pissed before. I felt like you two were a family, and you two are a family now, and I have an out. Walk tall.